So, today I wish to talk about how to grow your emotional intelligence. It's one of those advice posts that I stumbled upon. Social media, it's designed as a chart and it has 16 points, and I'll read through them and let you know how I relate to them or not. The first one is active listening. This is what you do: be able to restate someone's point so they say, yes, exactly. However, don't be so caught up in your own response that you forget to listen. This one, I can say that I'm a very good active listener from the get go, from the start. Nothing distracts me to where I turn into a passive listener. It's not like anything that I have weighing down in my mind is ever going to get in the way of me tuning into you. If I'm tuning into you, the time is designated for you, I can do that. However, I will admit that sometimes I get excited about being able to potentially join somebody in this discussion, in this conversation, in this topic. Sometimes, I guess you could say, it'll look or sound like I'm turning it about me, but it's because the same way that someone is sharing something, if I happen to have something that I can share back, I want to have my moment to sharing it back. But I guess it's hard to tell sometimes at what point it is your turn. And I guess in the past, I have got in trouble with one person before who was like, anytime I try to say something, I feel like you just take over or you don't know how to be quiet and listen, this and that. And I'm like, well, tell me you don't care about my point without telling me you don't care about my point. At least have time for each other, have time for the person to potentially have something to say that pertains to this, or from the get-go say, I'm going to tell you something, I don't want you to react to it, I just want to let it off my chest. And then you'll see that I can turn into an absolute tome. But if we're sharing this moment together, I am going to share my point as well. So I can admit that I can get caught up, especially if it's with someone I happen to be tight with already. Sometimes that other person would prefer that I take over the conversation anyway because they're running out of things to say. I never run out of things to say. Empathy. Do seek to understand how a person is really feeling. Don't make assumptions or try to make it about you. This one, I can say that, again, if it's something I can relate to, that will definitely pull at my strings a little bit. And I have had times in which I have legit cried with someone as they were telling me a story of someone in their family who's ill and how it makes them feel. I put myself in their shoes and I thought, if this person who is telling me about their mother, if that was my mother going through that, like I can feel it. And also to see my friend sinking like that, it just pulled at me. And of course, once again, making it about me. If I'm joining you in a sad moment, I'm not making it about me in a situation like that. What I do is I remain quiet. That's what I did for my friend, and that's what I have done for other people close to me who have lost a family member and they were going through it, processing it. I become at home. I give them the gift of my presence, which also includes the price of my silence, because I know that in a moment like that, you may have a lot to say, but you don't know how to say it because you're kind of choking up in it. But also, just know that this is something temporary. It'll pass, and maybe you'll go back to this time and reflect on it and be like, that wasn't as bad as I thought. It was bad in the moment because it sucks for the rest of my life that this person is gone, but your emotions do settle. And even if it's something not quite that serious, like say someone is going off on me, venting about something else that someone else is saying, I try to read the situation. Is this a situation that calls for advice? And my advice may be that, hey, perhaps you need to consider it from this person's perspective. I hear what you're saying, but maybe we're missing something from the other side. Or to avoid the part of making assumptions, I guess you can just let the person tell you whatever it is that they want to say and then leave it at that. Sometimes it's better to just read it from the get-go. Me personally, I would believe that everybody I talk to in my day who isn't a child, I never talk to kids in a day, but since you're not a child, I would expect that you can handle anything I may have to say. But in a sense, I guess this is trying to teach how to be more proper. Because I don't have superficial friendships, I don't know how to be this way sometimes, because everybody in my circle who I know, I allow them in my circle because I have tested them already. Like, okay, you can handle grown up conversations. When you don't, that's when you could say I stir things up a little bit. Self awareness, understand how your actions are perceived by others. Don't be arrogant, selfish, or think you're above critique. This one I can say I may struggle with it at work, admittedly, because I can be very intense. As a worker, I do my job. To me, working is not a burden. I like to see quality results. I like to see outcomes. I like for performance to be to the max. And sometimes my clashes come from, you could say, individuals who are not quite there yet. And it's not because they're new or anything. Sometimes I get more upset at the folks who have been there a little longer, who I don't see much progress from, and how it begins to affect me into me having bad days. I have shared with you guys some of those stories before. And this is actually a fight, you could say, that my manager friend has with me. Pretty much every single time something happens, he'll be like, well, you have actions. I know what you're doing. I know what you're intending. I know that you mean well, but this is how it's perceived by others. And I go like, I don't care. Am I wrong? If I'm not wrong and you're not disagreeing with me, what is the problem? I have already tried to deliver it nicely, kindly, politely, indirectly, directly. Now it's the point where I want to see action. I want to see changes. And the way I know how to do it is to increase the heat on these people. I'm not afraid of that. So that's when I may sound arrogant. I may sound selfish. I may think I'm above critique. But I'm just saying that I don't know how else to do it. If you don't have a favorable reaction to something that evidently needs action, needs to happen, then there is an issue. Whereas with me, anytime I have had to improve something and it's been pointed out to me and I'm being coached in the moment, I can accept it, I can learn it and put it to practice right there on the spot immediately as I receive the information. Why can't others do it? I measure others the way I measure myself. And the reason I pick on myself is because I know I deliver. That's it. If I were falling behind here and there, I'll be the first one to admit it. I have done it. So I can say that I have no trouble admitting that I do have arrogant tendencies and even selfishness here and there, but at least it's not like I do so because my way is the way that I want for things to happen so that I can conquer. It's never really ill intent. It's just I feel the way I feel for a reason. It's my experience, it's my knowledge, my intelligence coming out and stuff. And sometimes I just cannot help it. That is when I accept that I'm not qualified to be in a position to lead others. And that's why I continue to limit myself to being in a position of being led, because until I guess overcome that, I won't be a good fit to lead others. And especially, not that I'm ever gonna have kids, but I would especially not make a good parent if I have those tendencies. Emotional awareness. Pay attention to others' body language, reactions, and mood. Do not fail to adjust based on explicit or implicit feedback. I can say this is one I do pretty well. Sometimes when I see someone who is coming at me in a really agitated way, I don't tend to mirror that behavior because I'm definitely much better than that. But I will say that what I will do is I will put the mirror back on them. And the way I do it is by saying something like, do you see how calm and respectfully I am addressing you? If they still continue to bark, I will repeat myself, which I often don't do. One exception I make is, let's try that again. Do you see how calm and respectfully I am addressing you? You do? Okay, I'm gonna need you to reciprocate that. Very simple, very easy. Because some people, I feel like you have to call them out on their behavior. I wish someone would do that to me, especially my manager when I blow up at him here and there. I guess he lets you go through it. And maybe with me, it's because he understands that as soon as I go through it, I recuperate from it very quickly. Like I bounce back immediately. When I'm like that, even though I'm aware that I'm losing my shit, I'm losing my cool, sometimes I wish someone would challenge me into starting over. Like, hey, I understand you're mad, you're agitated, but look at how calm and chill I am. Why can you not mirror my behavior? And I'll undoubtedly say, I just cannot be that way right now because I'm past that point. Personally, I like to indulge in my angry reactions sometimes because it's not something that happens often. And when I do let it happen, it's because I'm letting you know that, hey, this is pressing. And I also feel like if you can evidence it physically and on your projection, it may lead to certain faster results because, hey, clearly this is affecting me. You see it, you feel it, you hear it. But sometimes I do wish that someone could be like, okay, hey, just chill. And when I'm on the opposite role, like someone is coming at me that way, I'm like, okay, just because you're upset, I'm not going to react to you with an equally upset answer because otherwise we're going to compete over who can continue cranking up on the upsetness, right? Who can get more upset than whom. That's never what I want to entertain there, but yeah, granted, I feel like that's something I can do. I can observe somebody and be like, yeah, this person doesn't look like they can handle some bad news right now. Or maybe, yeah, this person is agitated, but it doesn't mean that we can't work something out from this. I feel like I'm a very good reader of moods and stuff. And the other times when I get it wrong, I guess it's because it could be someone might have been fixated in a way that I hadn't observed before, and I just assumed the worst based off my own personal experiences. And I'll be like, you look like you're upset about something, and then it turns out that they're just fixated, trying to walk mentally through their house to remember if they need to buy, I don't know, a gallon of milk. And sometimes when you enter hyperfocus, your face may turn a little threatening. Feedback. Give direct, honest feedback. Don't think you're being nice by keeping people in the dark. This one is especially true. This is not a problem I have. I think my problem can be that I may be a little too direct, but sometimes I wish I could be a little bit more concise with my feedback. When I give someone feedback, I like to tell them the whole story, the whole picture. And sometimes some people, I guess, they don't like that or they don't appreciate when you take the time to literally give them the entire story. They would rather just be like, okay, cause, effect, conclusion, leave it at that, as opposed to the entire narrative. I personally, when I inquire about something, I'm the kind of person who, the way I go through my day is I like to be oriented. For me to feel oriented, I need as much context as possible. For some people, that information is pollution in their mind. And I guess I can understand that if you're in a position of management, a very quick paced environment where your time is limited and you have multiple cases to go through. But for me personally, as a regular, normal human being, to me, getting the details is not a burden. To me, getting the details enhances my understanding. And there are times in which sometimes I know details that have been omitted from a story because this person likes to have direct cause, effect, conclusion answers. And I'm like, well, since you don't like to hear the whole story, you get deprived of certain details. But then why wouldn't you want to listen to the entire details the first time we discuss something, so that way you avoid having to come back, waste time to get the rest of the context? That is what I'm trying to avoid here. If I'm telling you something, I'm going to tell you something to the point that you probably won't have any questions. And if you have any questions, you can self-answer them. But in this era of people want you to be direct and omit detail and everything, it's like I can see where potentially some of the dumbing down may be coming from. And I think that you just gotta be careful with it. You're definitely never being nice to someone by keeping them in the dark about things. I think that overprotecting someone in that regard does more harm than good because you're stunting their growth. You're delaying the time someone confronts something that aids in their growth. Input. Ask how you can do better. Don't neglect acting on it transparently. This one is not a problem I have. I don't very often get to ask these days how I can do something better because my days don't really change much. I already have my routine established. At my job, for instance, I'm already at the summit of my position. In fact, I am beyond my summit because I have more skills that are beyond my job description. But I will say that if I'm struggling with something, I can go out and ask. And usually, the way I do it is I like to write to people. We all have emails. I like to email someone so that it can marinate in their inbox until they get to it. And at the same time, I can also take the time to think about how I wish to express my thought, let it go, then come back and absorb it whenever it's a good time for me to absorb the information. I can tell you that when I was new to every single thing, every single role I have performed, that is my stage of asking questions. And that's why anytime I train new people, I always tell them, this is your season to be a student. This is the season for you to be asking questions, observe, inquire, be curious. The more you ask during this stage, the better your experience will be, the more confident you will become. But if you don't embrace that curious stage when you're in your introductory course, you're going to be overwhelmed, and it'll happen very soon, very fast. Motivation. Do take the initiative, finding strength within yourself. Do not need external validation or constant hand holding. This is something that I'm fighting with a little bit currently at work. There are some folks who I feel like they are literally being spoon fed. This is something that I talked to my manager about the other day. I said, hey, there are some people who I'm not used to spoon feeding because it's starting to make me think about the trend going on online where people, it was about a year ago, I heard people describing weaponized incompetence where you act like you don't know how to do something so that someone else does it for you so that you can avoid doing the work, something like that. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I can identify when this might be the case. My person I was talking to was telling me, well, you have to understand that sometimes the person may be doing that because once you show them, they will know what to do. And I'm like, they've been here for a while. You mean to tell me that this very frequent inquiry that a customer comes up here with, they still don't know how to address and they still have to pull me? If that's the case, then why don't I get their pay raise? Take the initiative. I love taking the initiative. If I see something, I own it. That's pretty much how I operate. And find the strength within yourself. That is true. Some days are going to be very rougher than others. It will continue to get tougher from here. And you just got to rely on yourself. You determine what your output is going to be based off what you have planted within you over the years. Have you planted good information within you? Have you inherited and retained good advice, great tools, stuff like that? All of that helps. Collaboration. Work well with others, sharing information, ideas, and credit. Do not fail to see their needs, inputs, and desires. This one, I can say that I may have my season when I occasionally may struggle with this. And I can tell you, when I was in school, I struggled with this. I did not like group projects because, as you can imagine, I was always the smart one. And it's not that I was necessarily paired with people who were too weak, but in some cases, I felt like I was. And very often, I would request that I work by myself because I have a particular way of doing things. I can focus on it. I know as soon as an assignment is assigned, I already envision what the final result is going to look like. I just gotta get my materials together. That's it. Whereas others, they spend too much time thinking about superficial things. And we're not covering much ground. Like, at what point are you going to research? At what point are you going to design the presentation? At what point are you going to figure out what the tools you need for this are? Like, no, no, no. As soon as you hear about something, you should kind of start seeing a picture of the final result. And failing to see their needs, it's something that I can say sometimes I may underdeliver at. I'm the kind of person who I may be able to deduce what your needs may be if you have expressed yourself detailed enough about a challenge you're going through. But if you don't fully express it, if you're not too outward with it because you're too shy or something, then you can expect to be a little neglected there. It's not ill intent, it's not deliberately. Sometimes I just don't think about those things because I don't think I should. I think you should be able to tell me, that you have a need and we can fulfill it. But if you don't, even as good as I am at guessing things, I'm not always a psychic everywhere I go. There should be a point in which you're comfortable expressing what your needs are. Diplomacy. Find common ground and lead with mutual respect. Don't use insensitive language. This one, it goes back to respect. I can say that this is not one that I have any issues with. When it comes to leading with mutual respect, that's easy to do if the other person, A, respects themselves and you are able to respect them because they have earned that respect. The only time I struggled with this one a little bit was someone, in a sense, demanding respect that they definitely didn't earn. And I'm like, you do know that I respect you because at the end of the day, I address you kindly. But if you want me to respect you holding a certain position, a certain title, well, once you begin to execute the role properly, adequately, without hurting me and others, then I can say you have earned respect. But if I don't see that, then I'm not going to respect you out of, oh my God, you hold the title, therefore I'm intimidated. No. Mindfulness. Do take actions to improve, like breathing or meditation. Don't think the mind is fixed. This is true. I can tell you that no amount of relaxing, no amount of calming myself has ever resulted in me getting better sleep. Sometimes better sleep just happens when I drug myself a little bit. Magnesium, not to be an advocate of supplements here, but to me, when I run out, I realize that I cannot sleep. Therefore, that's when I discovered that, okay, some things, even if my mind I think is fixed, it's not fixed because it may need external support. Now, another action I like to take is I just take myself away. If there is something happening, something developing, and I need to catch a breather, especially at work, I have done that. I'll call my manager and be like, I'm gonna close off for about a minute and 30 seconds. I need some fresh air. And I'll go outside and I'll pick up trash from the floor. I'll wipe down the window sills or ledges or tables or the ice machine, and even go get cards if I can physically do it. Say it's not raining too bad or anything like that, and the traffic is not too bad. If traffic is bad, I'm not going out there. I will continue to be productive even if I'm away from my designated spot. Sometimes I just have to admit that I'm being defeated by something, and when I get away from it, I find that I can recover. Appreciation. Lean into conflict, looking for a peaceful path toward forward. Avoid difficult situations. Don't do that. And I agree with that. I feel like I can appreciate that from most challenges I have experienced. That's why I'm so eager to embrace them now. Something good always comes out of it if both parties allow it. Now, if you're intent on seeing something as a problem and you try to avoid the problem because of the unpleasantry attached to it, I think that is an attitude problem that is going to cost you greatly. You have to figure out a way to embrace those inconveniences as much as you embrace people being stupid on the road, even if it pisses you off at that moment. Just go through the bitter process, and the sooner you address it, the better. But if you postpone it, it's just going to get bigger. Avoiding difficult situations, I think I can understand if you do it out of fatigue, but try to rebound as soon as possible. Adaptability. Do change your approach when circumstances change. Don't stubbornly stick to your ways, ignoring others. This one, I can say I have a little bit of trouble with sometimes. I do perfect with it outside of work, but at work, because I'm accustomed to things that work, then if you change something up on me and based off my experience, I evaluate it and I think I don't see the benefit, that's when my stubbornly sticking to my ways may persist, and I may ignore others because unfortunately in the past, when those things have happened, I have been right. It has brought problems that we don't have solutions for, and then I'm inconveniencing the customer, by extension inconveniencing myself, and I get a little frustrated with changes that didn't seem completely thought through. But in my personal life, I can say that I can embrace changes as long as I see the point. As long as I see the finish line, like, hey, we have to undergo this change. It's going to suck for a little while, but this is the time frame that it'll suck for. And on the other side of it, this is what we will gain. I can do that. I can endure hardship. God knows I've gone through hardship. But if it's unjustified, if it's stupid, I will definitely ignore others and I may continue to roll my way because I'm like, this is a disaster waiting to happen. And I'm confident in myself. I'm confident in what I'm observing. Therefore, no. Conflict resolution. Do lean into conflict, looking for a peaceful path forward. Don't avoid difficult situations. Pretty much the same description as appreciation. And I guess we have already gone through this before. You don't run away from the conflict, you lean into it, you embrace it. Just have a mature path toward it. Make sure that you understand what the problem is from the start and how the solution being attempted is proper. Because sometimes, as obvious as that is, you may not realize it. You may not realize that what you think is good for a situation is actually not working out. That's when you have to rely on experience. When you're younger and inexperienced somewhere, that may be a little tough because you're supposed to be able to rely on the folks who have been there for a while. But you also have to understand the season that the person you're relying on may be in. Maybe this is an older person struggling with their competitiveness because they're falling apart physically, or maybe emotionally, mentally, their friends are dying, their spouse is dying, their parents are dying, their children are sick, or something. Just anything can be happening. Be aware of how other people's competitiveness may be on the decline. Just because someone has been on their summit for like 20 years, it doesn't mean that they won't have a expiry date and that maybe they won't have moments in which their performance may take a hit and begin declining here and there. There's just an element of, you could say, refinement that you need to be able to address that. And I think the best thing to do that would be to collab with someone who is in a similar rank as this person who's giving you trouble, and then maybe use them either as a bridge or as a buffer to get to that person. But only do that if you're absolutely 100% certain you have done your research and you can back it up with evidence about why you're bringing this up about this person. Taking down a veteran can be a little hard, but it's not impossible. Influence. Do understand others' desires and motivations first. Don't try to dictate or coerce. This one, I can say that I am 50-50. Sometimes I do well, sometimes I don't. I think I do well when it comes to using my influence as power to maybe protect the house. Say, sometimes I will advise my managers on how I think something or someone may be a bad idea, how we may need to slow down and reevaluate something. Or I may also understand the need and their motivations for something first, but maybe I disagree with what our options are. And this one can be a little hard because I believe in my influence as much as the other person believes in their influence. Our influences are clashing with each other. Just take the best of both worlds. I can take their part, I can take my part, and as long as we're working toward the same goal, which is the betterment of the place, then I'm happy. But if I think that something is ultimately going to be a disaster, I will continue defending my stance until either I win or I lose. Emotional control. Do maintain composure and take a step back in charged situations. Don't get defensive or make hot-headed outbursts. This one, I can say that I don't struggle with, but I will say that I have empowered some people with the privilege to be able to see me in a vulnerable state. For instance, the stories I have told you guys about people who have definitely tried me and messed with me, they have no idea that I have been angry about them, I have been frustrated by them, I have been upset, blah, blah, blah. I only allow for authorized personnel in my book to see me in a vulnerable state. As of right now, there are currently 2 people I feel 100% comfortable with revealing that side of me to. But outside of that, nobody else, no one has any idea what goes on behind the scenes. And I do get defensive, I do get my hot headed outbursts, but like I said, I pick the person, the audience, which is usually limited to just one, and I pick the place. I'm never going to do it when there is a bigger audience, like say public that is involved or not involved with this at all. It's always, always, always an intimate setting. And maintaining my composure, all I do is be quiet and stay calm. You see no reaction from me. Now, I do let out the reaction to the corresponding authority. That's the only exception I make. Sociability, socialability. Take an interest in others and ask them questions. Don't blame others for awkwardness. Engage with them. I love asking questions, and pretty much everybody who knows me can tell you that at some point I have approached them with questions. And the way I determine it is I take into consideration your status compared to mine. Like, are you older? Are you younger? Are you a veteran? Are you educated? Are you uneducated? Are you a parent? Are you an older person who is not a parent? All those little things, and that may inspire me to inquire about certain things. Like the last question I asked someone at work had to be something like, hey, when I was in school, I took a class called Teacher Cadet, and basically I interviewed one of my teachers I had at the time, and I asked, hey, so what has been most challenging about being a teacher in your third year after college? And he was like, well, it doesn't help that I'm only about 7 to 8 years older than some of you, and therefore my position as an authority figure is difficult to project because for some of these kids, I'm the same age as some of their siblings. It's just hard sometimes to have control or have my authority respected. So I decided to ask that question to a manager. I said, hey, you have been in management for some time, but you're still pretty young. So may I ask, how is it that you feel you are perceived? Do you feel like you have trouble having your authority respected? Or do you think that it's different in the world of adults? Like from teacher to student, it's usually adult versus child. I can see the dynamic issue there, but at work, we're all adults. Adult to adult is usually a more mature chemistry, but it is possible that you're dealing with an adult who has gone a long time without being held accountable for things, without being challenged. And now you arrive as a younger person compared to this adult, maybe less experienced. Do you ever encounter someone who dismisses your authority or puts you to the test? And they said that it's all about how they carry themselves. They carry themselves confidently, maturely. They know what they're doing. They're informed. Therefore, when others observe that, they have no choice but to accept that they're the leader. They're the ones in charge, and that they have everything that they need to get through this situation. Basically, proving yourself by being efficient and qualified and competent, as opposed to you're just scrambling, trying to figure out something, trying to keep something together, but it's a struggle. You won't struggle if you get into a position that's right for you. If you got into a position out of ambition, but the position wasn't right for you because you're not prepared for it, it'll show. It'll show in no time, and you'll burn yourself out into quitting. Well, that's it from me, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed my opinion on these. Let me know any thoughts that you have on any of these. Which one do you think you dominate best? Which one do you think you do worst at? Or which one do you think you just can't do at all? And I'll see you next time.